Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone here to the August 11th, 2025 briefing of the Forsyth County Commissioners. And this is a briefing for our regular meeting this coming Thursday on August 14th. At our briefing today, we actually have two main discussion items before we review the agenda. And the first one is a discussion of the Transco pipeline. And I think, a lot of folks, at least clearly some of the folks in this room, familiar with the discussion that has been taking place in this community and broader across the state regarding another, using where we already have pipelines running through our county, and it goes through Guilford. It's a fairly long line through the state. And we have actually, we're going to hear from both the Sierra Club, Piedmont Environmental Alliance, and also the Williams Company that's actually building the pipeline. And the Williams Company representatives are actually, they landed in Charlotte, in Greensboro. They landed in Greensboro at 1:30, so they're on their way here. So we're going to hear from the Sierra Club and the Piedmont Environmental Alliance first, and we would have had a coin flip on who went first, but since they're not here, we'll do that. Our second discussion item is going to be a Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools continued update with the interim superintendent, Dr. Caddy Moore. And then we'll go over the agenda after that. So we'll go ahead and begin with the Sierra Club and Piedmont Environmental Alliance. Carolina Hansley from the Sierra Club and Jessica Mendez Rowe from the Piedmont Environmental Alliance. And we talked about trying to keep our presentation I'm going to use a timer and I'll go to 12 minutes. 12 minutes on that. We'll get that set, and then when the folks arrive after you, maybe the Williams folks are here on the pipeline, and we will actually do that. And after their presentation is over, any commissioner, of course, wishes to ask questions, will have an opportunity to ask questions. So without further ado, when you get set up, you are ready to go.
This one? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Good afternoon, commissioners, and thank you and staff as well for the opportunity to present to you today. My name is Caroline Hansley. I'm a campaign organizing strategist with the Sierra Club, and I've been on staff for nearly 10 years.
Good afternoon, commissioners, and thank you as well and staff for letting us present today. My name is Jessica Mendez Rowe. I work with the Piedmont Environmental Alliance, a community nonprofit here in town. We are organizing community members at PEA that are concerned about this proposed pipeline coming through their neighborhoods. We're having real-time conversations with folks that do not understand what benefit this will have to them. And today, Caroline and I are here to share with you on those community members' behalf that this proposed pipeline, in fact, is not going to bring any benefit to our local economy, and in fact will only bring risks to our health and to our safety. So the Transcontinental Gas Pipeline Company, or Transco, is owned by the Williams Company. It's a giant gas organization responsible for transporting about 1/3 of the gas in the United States across 33,000 miles of pipeline. Today, we're talking about the Southeast Supply Enhancement Project. This project, Transco is seeking to transport an additional 1.6 million decatherms per day of gas by building 2 new segments of pipeline in Virginia and in North Carolina. About 93% of this gas would go to 3 large companies and be used for commercial power generation. If permitted and if built, the SSEP pipeline would transport about 18,000 full Olympic-sized swimming pools of methane gas through a 42-inch diameter pipeline per day, again, under very high pressure. It's hard to imagine 42 inches, but it's about the size of an adult hula hoop. Great, thank you. In January of 2025, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission issued a formal notice indicating that it plans to prepare an environmental assessment for SSEP instead of a more robust environmental impact statement. This particular decision ignored over 7,000 comments from members of the public, 100 nonprofit organizations, more than a dozen North Carolina legislators, the mayor of Oak Ridge, and a Forsyth County commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner Bessie. This coming November, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC, is planning to issue a 30-day comment period on a draft environmental assessment, which is scheduled to end on December 7th. Shortly after, FERC will either issue or deny Transco's certificate to authorize eminent domain. However, there may be outstanding permits and easements not issued by that time in December. For example, this month, the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality opened a public comment period for crucial water quality permits on this project. There will be a public hearing for that permit in Kernersville on September 4th, and that comment period will close on October 6th. So essentially, we are on the precipice of action from DEQ and from FERC, which is why imminent action from this commission is really crucial. When you pass a resolution opposing the SSEP, these agencies can consider and incorporate that into their comments and your concerns into their decision. We're going to get a little more specific and precise now. This picture on the slide shows that there are already 3 high-diameter, high-pressure fracked gas pipelines in existence on the current right-of-way. And the proposed route of the new pipeline will go through residential areas. SSEP is proposed to cross several major roadways, including U.S. Route 421, North Carolina Highway 66, Interstate 40, and Interstate 74, which may put homes in important areas of Kernersville in what is called the high consequence area zone, and at great risk should a pipeline incident actually occur. We're very familiar with these highways, right? We drive them almost every day. Forsyth County already has almost 70 miles of methane gas pipeline. Some of this pipe is more than 50 years old. It's going to continue to age in place, and Transco has not proposed to replace or take out any of the existing pipe with this project. Getting even more granular, this is an aerial overview of Novant's Kernersville Medical Center and the VA clinic in Kernersville that's right across the street. We are very concerned with how close these major medical centers are to the right-of-way. The area in Kernersville off of I-40 near the right-of-way is slotted for a lot of residential and commercial development per our county's Forward 2045 comprehensive plan. The Williams Companies considers these areas of quote-unquote moderate consequence rather than a high consequence area. This is a risky designation given that there are multiple pipelines in the right-of-way, and particularly given that the administration that does oversee pipeline safety, which is called PHMSA, does not have a formula to calculate the potential impact radius of multiple pipelines that are co-located together. If a pipeline incident were to occur, these medical centers would certainly be impacted and an emergency action plan would be needed. Impact on other institutions near this pipeline should be considered as well. There are 4 public schools and 1 charter school near the right-of-way. Caleb Creek Elementary School, Union Cross Elementary School, which is pictured here, Southeast Middle School, Robert Glenn High School, and the public charter North Carolina Leadership Academy, which is also pictured here. There are also several private institutions, including Bishop McGuinness High School. Other important institutions are near the right-of-way, including the Fire Station 42 in Kernersville. Additionally, Piedmont Triad Regional Council's office is actually on the right-of-way. So pictured here, we see Union Cross Elementary, as well as the North Carolina Leadership Academy, 2 churches that are directly beside the right-of-way, which is outlined in red.
That was not 12 minutes.
No, you got 5 minutes.
Okay. Whew. Okay. So, what kind of fuel would SSEP transport if permitted and built? We're talking about methane gas, or as industry calls it, quote unquote, natural gas. And when accounting for leaks, it has climate impacts that rival those of coal. So since I have 5 minutes left, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit and talk about Transco's safety record. It claims that SSEP's construction and operation would be safe, but Transco holds one of the worst safety records, not only in number of incidents, but also in terms of fatalities, cost per incident, and gas spills per incident. Another important factor to consider is where this gas would go and why. Transco claims that this is renewable energy is too expensive and unreliable to be a reasonable alternative to the project, but it hasn't done the work to evaluate whether that's true. And ultimately, Duke Energy's plans for majorly increasing methane gas infrastructure could translate costs onto residential customers of more than $2,000 and $2,100 more on our power bills by 2038. Transco has predicted this would cost $1.5 billion at 2024 inflation rates. So air quality concerns. I'm going to do this in 2 minutes. Additionally, methane is, when extracted from the ground, causes air pollution and water contamination, leading to negative health effects. This map and a report Sierra Club put out with 7 directions of service earlier this year shows that there are already concerns of air quality in this part of the state, and you can go further into the fact that Compressor Station 150 and 155 have a very extensive amount of already existing infrastructure that pollutes air near where this would go. The other thing I want to bring up is that data centers have been talked about a lot. There's a lot of recent news about them in North Carolina, but there's a lot of concerns around whether this boom and bust will actually play out and who benefits, just like this pipeline proposal. So the thing we want to pay attention to when we've spoken with the chairman and Deputy County Manager Kyle Haney about is that ratepayers could be at risk of subsidizing the cost of this infrastructure being built to serve data centers. So we can talk a lot about that in the coming question and answer period when Transco gets here. But I think the final thing I want to leave you with is something from their own application. Quote, "The benefit of the projects are not realized by those who are impacted." So we're just repeating Transco's words back to you. That's from their own application to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, admitting there are very limited tax revenues to this county.
So our ask of this commission is to protect the rights of our local landowners and the safety of our community. We are asking you to put your support behind the real people that are here in Forsyth County that are concerned about more methane gas being piped through our neighborhoods. We hope you will continue what y'all started in 2019 with the passage of the resolution in support of a state goal of 100% clean renewable energy by 2050. So we urge each of you to support a resolution in opposition to the proposed SSEP pipeline. We also ask that once that resolution is passed, that the clerk file it with the FERC Commission and add it as a comment in our state permitting processes. These are really simple acts that will actually speak volumes on behalf of your constituents and the landowners that are directly in the pathway of this unnecessary pipeline.
And we will bring this over to the clerk, but we have today, we ask you to listen to the more than 420 constituents that have handwritten letters, written letters to the editor and signed petitions that live here and are real people that used a pen on paper to sign this to ask you to consider this action. And with that, we're happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Good, 56 seconds left. Wow.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yes. All righty,
Thank
questions?
You,
Go ahead.
A couple of questions. Probably the most significant of them is regarding the accident history safety record. Williams asserts that it has a strong safety record. Basically, you're asserting that they have a bad one. You cited one example. Do you have a more extensive list of examples with times, nature of the issues, et cetera?
Yes, I believe Jessica passed to the clerk. Y'all got it. Great. So there was in-depth reporting on this in the Triad by Ian Hutchinson, is his last name?
Ian McDowell?
McDowell in Yes Weekly. I think it came out after Transco made the same claims at their presentation in May to Guilford County Commissioners. Yeah, I'm sorry, Gray, I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to look at it. He goes in depth, point by point, of place and time and fines. And as Jessica referred to, the agency that tracks all of that is the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, or PHMSA, it's kind of a funny one, regulated under the Department of Transportation nationally. I think it's important the reason we included in our brief 12 minutes, the 33,000 miles of pipe, is that they might say, I haven't had an incident here, but as our slide just over the state border in Virginia shows, there have been fatalities, and in the not too distant past. So I think it's important to look at the whole, and that's what PHMSA does. And Ian's piece is one part of it, but Pipeline Safety Trust, who we mentioned, that filed an comprehensive analysis in the FERC docket, also has 9 pages, and I think you got that as well, detailing some of the history recently, but also not just here in North Carolina, of whether it was a compliance issue or erosion, and that there could have been actions taken before a fatality happened. So all of that should be in there.
I think we've given the pipeline safety.
At a previous meeting, okay.
The other question I had for y'all, now, you've pointed out that there are existing pipelines in the same area, but do you have any specific reason to believe that there is a difference in kind or degree of risk between the existing pipelines and the proposed new pipeline, pardon me?
Yes and yes. Part of what Jessica mentioned with the PIR, can you go back to that specifically? The agency I just mentioned, PHMSA, doesn't even have a calculation for how to determine a blast zone for multiple co-located pipes that are this close together. It just doesn't exist. So yes, to your first account, that number one, there are aging pipes that are well past their date of service. So that's one factor. But the second factor is that, yes, this is new pipe, and going next to aging pipes compounds that risk, either in an exponential way, we can't even calculate it. But I think another thing to consider is the rush to build right now. With all that's going on at the federal level, and the lack of an environmental impact statement, who is doing that? The question you're asking, is it us? Is it local agencies? Is it state agencies who are asking those questions and going to be able to answer them to a fire chief or someone who actually would be on the ground responding in a situation like this? And hopefully FERC would answer that. Hopefully other officials would be able to, but we haven't even seen what would an emergency evacuation plan look like in detail yet.
Well, you mentioned that I had written a letter to FERC, and it was basically, the letter was requesting that they require an environmental impact study rather than the more abbreviated environmental assessment. Of course, they turned that down. Some of the specific things I was asking about was the proximity to facilities like the healthcare facilities in Kernersville, residential neighborhoods, but won't that be addressed in the environmental assessment, or would it be addressed in the state permitting decisions?
In my experience, the current comment period that the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality is allowing public comment on is solely focused on water quality concerns. That authority comes from the Clean Water Act, which is federal, as everyone knows, and it grants authority for the state to protect their own waters. There is not an equivalent process for determining the proximity and all the things you just mentioned. So this is why we bring this up, and we're glad you did too, is where does this fall? Is it a whole? Who needs to address this? In Guilford County's resolution, they passed one, I almost said last month, but it's August. They passed one in June. They asked FERC to incorporate emergency management communications that they have for their county into any plans. Transco hasn't responded to that yet. You can ask them that also when they get here, but there are things you can proactively ask either state and or federal agencies to do, but ultimately if you don't ask, right, they may not know to do it.
That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I don't have any questions, but for Jessica, for the possibilities of a resolution, is it possible to share the PowerPoint presentation?
Absolutely. Yes, we can do that.
Thank you.
And I believe that Assistant County Manager Kyle Haney already has the presentation.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Other questions? I appreciate the briefing that Kyle and I received from you all. A lot of research on data centers and what would happen if X percent were built, and kind of gets at the issue of need, which is a question certainly I'll ask the Transco folks. I do have sort of, just as I sit here thinking, a curiosity question. I'm trying to envision what you have, we're talking 40-something miles, whatever miles that we're talking about, and the total miles through North Carolina. In terms of total, there are a lot of governmental entities that, and I guess the only part that's under construction is the highlighted orange pieces. Those are going to be the additions, or is the pipeline running the full swath through North Carolina to the gray line?
You're correct, Chairman, that the orange pieces, where it says Eden Loop and Salem Loop, are the new pieces of pipeline.
Only pieces in the state of North Carolina. That piece and a little bit that's up in the north section.
Correct.
So let's say that all the governmental entities, as hypothetically in that area, pass a resolution, whatever else. I mean, the options that would have seemed to exist to Transco or others is that the decision could be made to simply reroute the line. I mean, through some place it did. I mean, I'm trying to look at what are the what ifs, and what are the options that our state agency has that they can obviously deal with the environmental thing and say, no, this, we've done it's not an impact study, but their review, and they could say that could be a stopper. But if they say yes, if we assume FERC says yes, I mean, I'm trying to get at what the likely impacts would be of decisions from different bodies that would actually get into rerouting, to get into other things.
In my experience, a proposed pipeline of this size that in the last 5 years that received approval from state and federal agencies was, you may be familiar with it, it's called the proposed Atlantic Coast Pipeline. It was even in construction. I think they got about 20 miles built in North Carolina before the companies, Duke Energy and Dominion, pulled the plug about 5 years ago. So even if resolutions get passed or don't get passed, I think the bigger concern we're raising here is that there is due diligence that needs to be done. It's not being done. There are questions to be asked. When we have these community meetings, more and more people want to know everything we raised, and we only did it in 12 minutes. There's a lot more we could discuss, obviously. But that's one path. Another path we've seen in this image, it's kind of a little bit over Alamance County. Another smaller proposed pipeline, Mountain Valley Pipeline Southgate, was proposed in 2018. And 3 entities, local governments, passed resolutions against it, and the state agency denied the necessary water quality certification, and it has never been built. So I'm not a crystal ball holder. There's a lot of paths this could go, but I think with the report that we shared, for those who, I didn't get to touch on it too much, but the Southern Environmental Law Center put out a report last month, basically saying that evidence indicates data center developers frequently submit redundant requests for electrical services across multiple jurisdictions simultaneously, and therefore their requests may be incorporated into multiple demand forecasts before they have any skin in the game. So there are multiple alarms being raised at multiple levels about the potentiality of this need coming to actually bear fruit. And we saw that with SELC's report. But to just answer your question directly, we hope with all the resolutions that have been passed and will hopefully be passed by this body, that regulators will ask the right questions and go back and do an environmental impact statement, listen to the directly impacted people, make plans for proximity to important sensitive centers, And the only people who can, besides constituents who've already asked, that can raise that haven't done it yet are some of these local entities like yourself. So it will have an impact. We've seen it play out here in North Carolina directly of slowing down, if not eventually even stopping, unneeded, dirty, and dangerous fuel that we don't need.
Okay. Other questions? All righty, thank you both.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Right.
your time.
Do we have they're not here yet?
We do. I got an update from them. They will be here probably closer to 3. Their flight got delayed a little bit longer, so.
Okay, well, we can actually start reviewing our agenda, and I'll turn the briefing over to our county manager, and she can kind of begin walking us through the items for next Thursday. And when they get here, in fact, we could probably, you might be able to text Caddy Moore and say,
She's here.
oh, she just walked in the door.
No, she's been here.
Oh, I didn't see her come in. Well, would it be helpful to start with, we can, you want to continue, can you mind splitting it up? And that way, maybe if we need to, why don't you come ahead and let's do that. Our agenda items take fewer people's time, and we can do that. That's good. If we can get to part 2 from part 1. I think you're going to give us an update of what's happened since you were last here, and then we will continue with where we were, I guess, 2 weeks ago.
I think it's this one. Thank you, Chair Martin. Thank you for inviting me back. I'm going to be completing the presentation, the thing I didn't get to really, which was Article 46 last time around. But I have a couple of slides at the beginning that are sort of updates to some items from the last time that I was here. Again, I'm here because Winston-Salem Forsyth County School System is requesting funding flexibility and some additional funding to address the fiscal year 25 budget deficit. This is a capital outlay reallocation and additional funding request. Available remaining funds of $3.8 million, that is the reallocation that we are requesting, and then the additional funds of $4.7 million. In this particular case, these funds, the $3.8 million, are available from specific project savings from prior years. That is the genesis sort of the request that you will be considering at your meeting on Thursday. Some updates since the briefing the last time that I was here. With regards to Ashley Elementary, we had a date on here previously that we would bring the CMAR to the board on August 12th. That is now August 26th. We have not completed those negotiations, so needed to push that decision out. The remainder of the timeline remains the same right now. Last time that I was here, I presented some information on the board considering future meetings to discuss school consolidation. I put a timeline before you. Before, it just said that they would consider it in August. That date is actually set. It is tomorrow. There is a Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting of the Board of Education where they will have a discussion about facility utilization and some schools and begin the work to determine whether or not they are prepared for and ready for any type of school consolidation, including a recommendation from the staff. And the remainder of that timeline remains the same as well. A couple of other pieces of update. I've tried to highlight the things that were updated in yellow so you could see what they were. So the first one is the projected shortfall with the state has continued to drop. We thought it was around 18 million back in late June when we were talking about this. Once we closed the school year, it came down to 13.7, and based on a letter that we received most recently from DPI, it is at 11.3. So all of that is good news in terms of what we owe them that they are going to be billing us for.
Can you explain the reduction from the 13.7 to the 11.3?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I think so. So they, in June, or back in May or June, began to withhold some cash from us based on the anticipated shortfall. So we were getting less money from them, and when we were doing our books, we were including in full allocations. So she indicated, Alexis Schaus from DPI, that while our books might show 13.7, based on cash they withheld at the state level, it's actually 11.3.
It's good.
And while you're here, Dr. Caddy, if you don't mind indicating how the school system has appealed, or have they not done
I'll talk about that in
already?
just a minute.
Okay, you will. Okay, thank you.
So as a part of the presentation when we were here last time, we indicated that we had submitted a letter to DPI requesting that they waive the 1% interest that is charged on balances due from the prior year. We were sort of proactively requesting that waiver because they hadn't even sent us a bill or told us that they were planning to charge interest at that time. We have since received a letter last week from State Superintendent Mo Green and Deputy State Superintendent Maria Petrie Martin, which is actually where the level goes, the request goes first. That request was made by our state board chair, by our school board chair, and they indicated that the process actually would be, I'm familiar with this process, once DPI tells us they're planning to charge interest on the amount owed, then our board can request an appeal to the state board, where the state board will convene a panel to have a hearing, usually 3 state board members, who will review our request, and then they will make a recommendation to the full state board on our request. The full state board will hear that request. So at this point where we are is we have been notified by DPI that they will begin to charge interest as of September 20th. So we have until September 20th to pay the 11.3 that is owed. Any balance that remains owed after September 20th, they will begin charging interest on at 1% of the balance per month. That we have been notified. And so now the board chair will be sending a notification to the state board requesting a hearing, an appeal of that determination by the superintendent and deputy state superintendent. And they will appoint the panel will review it, and then the panel will make a recommendation to the full board. I anticipate all of that possibly happening in time for the State Board of Education meeting in September. And so they will then, the full state board will consider our request at that, which is the first Thursday in September.
But while you're a little pause, I know you have withheld you have some child nutrition money, roughly $2 million. Have you determined yet the interest that would require on the $2 million?
I do not have the interest on that, but I'll get it to you.
Because it would, let's just assume that the answer, taking a worst case, the answer from your appeals process is no. Then, to whatever you can extent, if the interest rate is less on the child nutrition dollars, and in fact you have even some more than the $2 million. If the interest rate is less, reducing that 11.3 down to, you could conceivably go to about 5.3 if you used every bit that you could of child nutrition. Then you have saved a 1% a month interest substantially if it merits what. I don't know what the feds do on the fund balance of the district.
So I think what you're saying is exactly what we're contemplating, is looking at funds available, looking at the multiple places funds are owed, who is charging interest, how much interest, and what is the best use of the funds that we have available.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
Go ahead.
And then an additional update, I just highlighted 3 words here. So yes, the letter was sent to the local delegation. I'm sure all of you have read the way I characterized the responses in the second bullet. Several members of the delegation did respond and express concern over the timing of the letter, given the House and Senate schedules, or a desire to review pending investigative audit report that's coming from the Office of the State Auditor. Our board chair responded back to the responses that came from the 3 legislators that I saw, and continue to advocate and request for an opportunity to meet and discuss our needs and see if there was a path forward. So they are currently working on a date to meet in September. I think that date may have actually already been set, maybe around the 20th. I can't remember exactly. But they are going to meet in September and continue discussions on the request. So I will be glass half full and say that that request is pending. Again, still.
Okay.
So those were the updates from the last time around. And now I wanted to go into Article 46. You all know probably a lot more than I do about all of this, so hopefully I will get it right, but I can at least frame what's happening on our side of it. So we began to receive the Article 46 revenue specifically to increase teacher supplements in fiscal year 21. What we did in 2021 was we added a flat rate column to our salary schedules. So if you look online under HR, how much do teachers get paid, you will see a column that has a flat rate in it for Article 46. I believe you'll see in a further slide that we began at 200 the first year, determined that we could move it up to 300. It's been 300 for several years now. And that was a column that reflected in our salary schedules a local supplement from specifically Article 46 that is in addition to the local supplement that was already being funded from the local appropriation from the commissioners. In that salary schedule, what we see is that the employees who are paid on the licensed DPI salary schedule are the ones that have always received local supplements and Article 46 supplements when they were instituted. I think this has been a question that has come up as well. The positions that are included in the local supplement that have always been included in the local supplement include classroom teachers, counselors, librarian, media coordinators, instructional facilitators, magnet and IB coordinators, EC facilitators, district instructional coaches, social workers, psychologists, nurses, speech pathologists. The local supplement has always included those categories. Part of the reason for that is 10 or 15 years ago, a little while back, DPI only had 3 salary schedules, one for licensed staff, one for classified staff, and one for non-licensed staff. And so there were lots of categories that were caught up in the teacher salary schedule that were not actually classroom teachers. And so the local supplement, however long it has existed, has always applied to those categories. So when Article 46 was implemented, it was implemented in parallel fashion, and all the same categories that were receiving the local supplement were now receiving a supplement from Article 46. I think there's not been common understanding that all those categories are part of that local supplement and part of the Article 46 supplement. So wanted to make sure that was understood. A little bit of history on what the bachelor schedule looks like anyway. The local supplement back in 2021 was between $260 and $772. That local supplement is paid based on years of experience. So an entry-level teacher would receive $260 a monthly additional on local supplement. A teacher at the highest end of the scale would be receiving $772 per month. And that changed. You will see in 22-23 there was some movement on those local salary supplements, and that range went from what it was in 21 to starting at $340 up to $852. And that is per month local supplement. Article 46, when it was implemented, as I said just a moment ago, was $200 a month in the first year, moved up to $300 a month after that. This past year, you'll see an asterisk in fiscal year 24 when it was $362. There were some funds that weren't spent every year out of Article 46, so sort of some savings had accumulated from that. And the board chose to use those savings to increase Article 46 for 1 year only for teachers so that it wouldn't continue to accumulate a balance. And that's the $362, and it is now back to $300 a month. The bottom line, I'm going to do my best to explain this in a way that makes sense. So in 22-23-ish, the General Assembly, the legislature, appropriated an average 4% raise for teachers. And it's been an average raise for a number of years now. And the General Assembly, as they implement that in their budget bill, the raises are weighted towards the lower end of the scale. They are prioritizing beginning teachers and attracting beginning teachers into the profession, and lesser for those teachers who are at the higher end of the pay scale. So when they say average 4%, you may have teachers at the beginning part of the scale that were receiving 6 to 8% raises, and teachers at the higher end of the salary schedule, if I recall correctly, that had like a 0.8% raise, less than 1%. But the average across it was 4%. So in order to honor veteran educators in the district chose to use funds that were part of Article 46 funds to increase the supplement, the local supplement, to the teachers on the higher end of the pay scale to ensure that those teachers also received a 4% overall salary increase, but it was actually on the local supplement because it was not part of the state salary schedule. So still an allowable use of Article 46 because it is for local supplement, but weighted differently. Only the teachers who were employed by Winston-Salem and Forsyth County Schools at that time in that year received that additional amount. And they continue to receive it now. Teachers who may have joined the district, meaning the supplement is fixed, teachers who may have joined the district who had 25 years of experience, but they joined after they did this, are not part of that senior certified staff supplement.
A nightmare to administer.
I think the way I would look at it, if you do it now, or the way we're going to do it, quite frankly, is you'll see the local supplement that everyone gets based on their years of experience. You'll see Article 46, and when you get to a certain year, I think it was 16, I don't know what it is now since it's been a couple of years, you'll see it branch off into 2 columns. And those 2 columns will be $300 all the way down for everybody, and then a different amount only, with a star, only if you were caught up in the year that this was implemented and a part of this decision. It's, they don't, on their paycheck, they just see the total amount, but on the salary schedule, it's hard to see, and it's hard to understand that it doesn't apply to everyone, it only applies to a few.
So obviously, the 38 to 120 was dependent on experience of the staff.
Correct.
So each year, those staff members are getting more experience, but their amount is not changing. So if you locked it, well, I want to get at that.
Yeah.
If you locked in at the minimum requirement at 38, you continue to go up again the next year. It goes to whatever it is in year 2, all the way to, I assume, the 120s at 30 years.
That's a good question. I don't know if they locked in at 38 and stayed at 38 as they went through, or locked in at 120 and stayed at 120 as they went through. I need to ask that question.
That would make a lot of difference in the
It's
total
about,
cost, because it'll only get, well, it'll get less as you have attrition.
Correct.
But it gets
more as they get more
per
experience.
person
Correct.
as it goes forward, if that's the case, and again, a nightmare to administer.
It is. I can ask that question just to be clear and follow back up.
And it seems that you have an opportunity to make some corrections now, and that might be one to consider.
Well, yes. If so long as it is impacts future pay, yes. I don't think we'd go back and make adjustments to where they are now, but we could stop it where it is for the future.
Well, you may not want to. My suspicion is you can.
Okay. No, you're right. We can do it for all of it, actually. So.
Keep going.
All right. So complicated sort of explanation for a well-intentioned wanting to make sure that experienced teachers received a raise that was not part of the state salary schedules. As we move forward, so up until this year, the amount that a teacher receives in their paycheck for their supplement combines the local supplement and the Article 46. It is one amount on their paychecks. They are separate on the salary schedules that you see printed online, but it is one amount in the paycheck. We are separating that out so that they will see a separate place for Article 46 and a separate place for the local longevity. we need to every year review the revenues, review the amounts, and I think bringing that conversation publicly every year to the board as part of the budget adoption process and the salary schedules will be helpful, particularly since Article 46 revenue changes. You need to check every single year to make sure that the amounts that you have proposed to provide are still amounts that you are able to provide. And it becomes sort of a little bit check and balance to also make sure that the concern that you're not supplanting in any way is happening because you're keeping the 19.7 separate from what you're doing with the Article 46. So we're going to separate them into separate PRC codes so that they can see them separately on their paychecks.
Just one quick question that probably you will not be able to answer now, but if you look at the 19.7, whatever the magic, that sort of number was, to prevent supplanting of the existing supplement with Article 46, just as this coming year, there's no question you will have fewer positions staffed than you did last year. So the question becomes, if that amount, as people, it's very possible that to keep things where they were, that 19.7 could be 19,550 or something, just another numbers. And so the question becomes with that it was not contemplated that staffing would be reduced at the time Article 46 began. That was not contemplated. And now that it has, and it really kind of, since that is also dependent on years of experience, and there are new people and other people, there are people, back and forth, the question kind of becomes how that number should be considered on an annual basis.
Okay, let me get in a couple of slides and we'll talk a little bit more about that.
All right.
It's a little bit further on. So in the second bullet, I need to apologize to your county manager on behalf of the district that reconciliation reports have been requested of the use of Article 46 and never been provided. So we are providing them. Met earlier last week to go through some of it and need to provide them on a regular basis, whatever is requested, so that you can see how it's being used. I'm not sure if it was the complexity of what was being done, but I think the opportunity to explain it, and then obviously we're public stewards of public dollars. We need to show where the money is going and how it's being used. So we've already started that process with what's happened so far, and we'll talk about it a little bit more in just a minute, and we will be providing those reports. So we talked a little bit about future budget pay lines. So this is exactly like what an employee will see on their paycheck. They'll see their base pay line set by the state, the local supplement that comes from the general appropriations, experience level, appropriate budget code, the Article 46 flat rate with the specific PRC for Article 46, and then those staff that are senior certified staff supplement will see that adjustment included above the 300 for theirs. So here we're talking a little bit about the revenues over the last few years. So you see the allocation that we receive on July 1. This is the allocation that is projected when the commissioners adopt their budget and sort of the amount that the school district can expect. As a part of that process every year, since this is a tax revenue and variable, there is a procedure where a true up happens in terms of what's actually come in. And you will see that early on, the true up involved receiving additional funds from the county because revenues came in higher than what the allocation that was initially adopted gave us. And so you see there the total received in the column for several years. For fiscal year 24, and I make sure I explain this correctly, there was an allocation overage of about $800,000 that year. But because the following year, we actually owed 770 some, and that all happened after June 30th, and that's why it's reflected zero, and then the next year it was only 25,000 to true up. That's just the timing of when the money came in and the money went out. But If there was not any timing to be done, then '24 would show 800,000 and some to the good, and fiscal year '25 would show a negative of 770 something. So it's just about when the budgets, the money actually came in. So you see the total received, you see the amount that goes to charter schools in the community, that it is tax revenue, it is part of the local appropriation, it is due to charter schools. There's no question there. And then the available funds to the district after you remove the funds from the charter. So now, if you were to take a look at what's contemplated from the Article 46 funds and what's contemplated in the Commissioner's budget resolution as the minimum amount that goes towards local salary supplements, you see the same amount of 19.798, which is the amount that the Commissioners put as the minimum in their budget resolution that goes to local supplements, and then you see the Article 46 amount. So you see the total revenue there that is contemplated as being available for supplements. This past year, $38,845,000. And then this is what's actually happening. So you will see for the first few years, when you look at the total revenue, and that total revenue that you see in that first column is the last column from this slide, okay? So the total revenue and then the total local supplements paid, and then the total expenses, including benefits. And benefits is because obviously there's retirement, withholding, taxes, all of those things that go into it as well. So then you see the fiscal year balance. You will note that the first couple of years, we actually had an excess. And then in fiscal year '23, when you put the Article 46 together with the 19.8 that's in the Commissioners as a minimum, we are now spending more for the local supplements than what is actually contemplated in the budget. So this past year, the local supplements, including the Article 46, actually came in at 5.8 million more than the 38 million that we expected. Those dollars that are in parentheses are funds that are coming from the local appropriation that the Commissioners are providing the district. And I think perhaps what has not happened in budget presentations or has not been clearly outlined in budget requests to the county is that we're running a deficit on this, and that the amount that's being contemplated for local supplements is actually higher, and we're just taking it out of our local appropriation and not doing something else. So I just think it's important context to have around where the dollars are going.
You're not kidding. That's
So, and you know, this was eye-opening, because when you start thinking about why you don't have enough money to do things, if you're not clear about where your funds are going and able to explain it, that's how you end up where we ended up.
Yeah, at the outset, when Article 46 was approved and implemented, the discussion was about what kind of fund balance perhaps it should run to cover those years when, sales tax were to decline, because everyone understood it was not a guaranteed it increased every year. It did for a few years, but that it would eventually stabilize and be up and down, because we have many 100 years worth of sales tax data that it fluctuates. So at the year when you showed some of the changes that were made in the much earlier slide, it ate up the $4 million in fund balance. Notice the fund balance of $4 million, that basically got eaten up in that process, and then there was no fund balance, and that's what's created this problem. So essentially, it is, as you suggest, it is now coming directly from the county's appropriation, which was unbudgeted in an amount, and if it were budgeted at 100%, it was either going to eat into fund balance or eat beyond.
And I think there's a conversation to be had at some point here about some clarity around, so what happens when there is a balance? Is there a percentage that should be held for leaner years? is it contemplated, because the balance is coming from Article 46, it's not coming from the 19.8 that is the baseline, it's coming from Article 46. So is it contemplated that the remaining, that any fund balance from the Article 46 that's not being used should be used to not appropriate other local funds to meet the regular supplement obligation? And I think that's, or not, right? Or does it become should the district have a $5.8 million ask from their local dollars to complete it, or can Article 46 funds be used to make sure that number is not that high? And that's, I don't know if we all have clarity on that.
It was clearly contemplated that you do the best you could, and you would always maintain a fund balance to try to avoid those times and to avoid that part. And the other, I also see how the 19 million, that's the shore-up amount piece, obviously has gotten, it has not only been eaten up, but it's over. So the idea of fewer positions actually
It's going to take a while to get
but it
square.
actually helps that.
Yeah.
In the subsequent years, like this next year, for example.
And I would also say, I'm not sure that, I think the conversation we have next February, March, April, around where we are, is going to be really important, because seeing where we've landed with what position reductions have been made and what the impact that has had on our budget, to help us better understand, with if we have fewer positions, fewer people that are receiving that local supplement, what that number looks like, and then we can budget more properly for it for the coming year and be clear about whether there's a deficit or not, and how we're going to handle it.
So if I can just add a caveat to all of the financials, I would like to know what the impact is going to be on the students in the system, right? Are you keeping a report in terms of what that looks like as well?
So the pay is sort of a livelihood and morale kind of question, right? And so when pay is uncertain or potentially reduced, whether it's your livelihood or your morale that changes, those kinds of things have direct impact on how teachers engage with students in the classroom. And so that is a hard message. In speaking to principals, I have asked them I've told them, what I've said to them is, I need you to shepherd your communities, your staff, and your families through these difficult changes that we're coming forward with. They are not easy. They will change some things, and folks will need help getting on the other side of it. And I feel real conflicted about that message, because on the one hand, they are very real changes: reductions in personnel, reductions in non-personnel, reductions in resources, all of those things. It's not the core stuff, it's the supplementary stuff. I mean, we're doing the best we can to mitigate that impact, but that doesn't mean that there's not an impact. And so people turn to their principals and their leadership in their school communities for reassurance about what the school year is going to bring, and how students are, to the extent possible, sheltered from what that looks like. My experience with teachers so far, the ones, you have a few that will be, brave enough to directly email me and have a question about something or a concern. Spent some time this morning with one at a high school talking, after she sent me an email about some concerns. And it is taking the time to have those conversations and send a message about how important the work we're doing every day in the classroom obviously is, and how we find ways to, keep that front and center for the sake of the kids that we're seeing every single day. But you can't ignore the impact and the fact that there are other things that are going on that adults are bringing into the classroom with them every day. So.
Thank you.
Okay. There's one additional new item that I wanted to sort of brief you on. Tomorrow evening, we're asking our board to do something that may seem a little strange. You may appreciate it. So you allocate us this amount in the local current expense fund. I've taken the capital out of it. Included within those local current expense funds is a little over $4 million that gets paid to the Forsyth County Sheriff's Department for SROs, and about $511 that gets paid to you guys for the exceptional children's nurses. These are funds, by the way, that we owe you for last year, and we would owe them to you again this year. It's about $4.6 million. What we are requesting that our board do, or what I am requesting that our board do tomorrow evening, is to request that from you, that you lower our appropriation for this coming school year by that amount, so that the dollars don't have to come to us, they just stay with you. Because the sort of back and forth of give it to us, we write you a check, seems unnecessary. And so, but in order to do that, because all the budgets have already been adopted, we have to formally request that you reduce our local appropriation. So I will be asking the board to approve that request tomorrow evening. And then I believe the commissioners would need to entertain that request from the board and decide on it. Any questions about that?
No, that's good. And I've shared with you.
You'll get paid.
I've shared with you some private thoughts about that,
Yep.
but I think it's the right thing to do.
All right. I think that was it for me. Happy to answer any other questions.
Other questions for,
I don't have any questions, but I want to go back to the accountability relative to the supplements for the teachers, and I've already discussed this with our county manager, who I will be holding accountable with our financial team relative to the reporting that's needed to come back to us. So
Yep.
I wanted to put that on notice that we will. My question to her is, how often should we be looking for those reports?
So your budget ordinance that you adopted said quarterly.
Okay, just wanted to clarify. Thank you. Thank you, Dr.
Of course.
other questions?
I have two questions. One is regarding the request that's pending that we'll be discussing further on Thursday. With regard to the first part of the request, approve the reallocation of $3.8 million that had been assigned but not obligated to ongoing capital maintenance expenses. My understanding previously had been that there were funds substantially in excess of that $3.8 million request, and that you were asking that $3.8 million of that total larger amount be transferred to use in basically paying down existing debt. Is that a correct understanding?
That is correct. The total amount that's available, that's showing on your guys' ledgers as available, is closer to 6.6, somewhere around that. But some of that is already either obligated, projects that have started, needs that we need to follow through on. So the portion that was unspent, undesignated, was the 3.8.
So basically, you're retaining enough in the way of capital maintenance that you anticipate that you would be able to address situations that became emergency status before the next scheduled allocation of money.
It's a little bit of a relative answer. The answer is yes, but our needs far outweigh the funds that we have available. So we do have to reprioritize within that, but we expect to have funds available. And you, I think, had another change that you were looking at for us. I don't know if that one's already gone through, but in terms of reordering the 2/3 bonds, $8.5 million projects. Where did that one go? Where we were building, you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, that was essentially just a rearranging of the projects from 2 active projects to a contingency transfer so that they could meet emergency repairs as they come up. So it didn't really impact the actual dollars being utilized.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. And the other question I had, first I wanted to thank you. The commissioners received a number of emails late last week from parents expressing concern about the announcement that you wouldn't be hiring any traffic control officers to staff.
Correct.
The pickup and the drop-off and pickup. You did respond to several specific questions that I had posed. I shared that information with the parents that had emailed us about it. Again, thank you. I did have one additional question come in about that since then, and that was from a parent who was asking whether there was a policy regarding parents volunteering at schools to assist. I told her I wasn't aware of specific policies, but I suggested that they may want to check with the principal of their children in school to see if they had arrangements for accepting volunteer, but you may have a more comprehensive answer.
Well, it's a dicey proposition from a liability perspective in particular. You know, when we think about schools, there are lots of people that have accountability for different aspects of schools in our communities. And things like roads and crosswalks and signage and signals and those kinds of things, when you're building a new school or renovating a school, there are local ordinances and state laws that come into impact in terms of how you build crosswalks and signage and that sort of thing. When the schools have been in existence for a longer period of time and they're not under some of those newer policies and reviews, you have existing lack of sidewalks, lack of crosswalks, lack of signage or signals. But that doesn't mean people aren't accessing them anyway in order to get to schools. So I think that the traffic control, which was implemented a little while back, was an attempt to try to address some of that, but it was never fully fledged out, was never at all schools, maintained a persistent 35% vacancy rate, and blurs the line a little bit between whose responsibility that is. It's our collective responsibility. And by that, I mean state, county, municipal, schools. It's our collective responsibility. So I do hope that on the other side of this budget crisis and these reductions, that a conversation can be held about really, and there's a whole area statewide, you know, actually, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Safe Routes to Schools programs, but they are all over the place in terms of how we do exactly that. And so we have some structure, some language, some expectations can help us build something that could be sustainable and involve multiple partners at the table with regards to how to create it, how to fund it, how to keep it. So.
In the immediate context,
Yeah.
I would suggest expect that question.
I will.
And if there is a model such as the Safe Routes to School under which you could responsibly accept volunteer help, if you could get that information out to.
And I'll have our attorney review it. I think really the big question is going to be that liability issue, but I'm happy to look into it.
Thank you very much.
Other questions?
Yes, briefly, you just described handling that $4.6 million issue with an offset, essentially, rather than checks being exchanged, correct? With regard, if I could focus on vendor debt, you described last time the $15 million that was owed, a third of that is owed to the county, as I understand it.
That's correct.
And that's sort of the jewel in the crown there is to avoid lawsuits, which I would think would come first from that area if the debt were not repaid. If there were funds that were available from the county that apparently might be for the benefit of the school system, and there seems to be some significant question about that, would an offset be something that could also be considered in that context? In other words, rather than write a check that might go down a rat hole, could there be an offset if that were the case? Is that something that you've considered or would consider?
You're speaking commissioner speak right now. So let me just tell you what I would love. First, unlikely, rose-colored glasses. Somebody says, you don't need to pay us back that money from last year. Okay, that would be great. Second, flexibility, which I think you're providing a lot of grace and patience and flexibility in that right now, in terms of not sending a collector and letting us work through this in order to try to figure out what that could look like. I do believe you wrote into your budget ordinance the ability to just take it if you need to on a regular basis from us, or all in one fell swoop if you felt like you needed to. So that's in your ordinance if you want it back, that we wouldn't have a choice about, quite frankly. I think that looking forward, how that might be offset, whether it is future appropriations or future allocations, I think there's certainly space for a conversation about that. I feel like absent a very large monetary gift, we're going to have to contemplate that future increases from the county will be applied towards any debt that we have anywhere. So I'm not sure if that fully answers your offset question, because I'm not sure what you're contemplating as a universe of how to offset it, but.
Well, you said at our last gathering that the vendor debt was a significant concern and that it would be a hardship,
Yes,
definitely, to try to address that.
correct.
And that's still the case.
Yeah, it is still the case. We have, there are 3 large vendors. The county is one of them. One of the other vendors is emailing us and contacting us persistently. We are contacting them back persistently to give them updates on where we are. We know we are no longer with that vendor. They really have no incentive to do anything other than demand the funds that we owe them. The other vendor we do still have under contract. That vendor has been much more amenable to figuring out a longer-term way to figure out how to repay what we owe, so long as we remain current with our current obligations under the continuing contract. So the hardest piece of that $16 million debt for us is the substitute management that's at 6.1. The other 2 pieces, the county has provided us flexibility by not asking for it right away. The other vendor is willing to work with us. We have 2 more years on their contract. But the substitute management at 6.1 is the one that's most urgently we're being contacted about. And then, of course, what is now 11.3 with the state.
And the interest on that contract debt is a minimum of 8%, correct?
We have not progressed that far in our conversations with the substitute management system about interest on the debt.
Well, that's what either the contract or the law
Okay.
applies that, correct? Okay.
They
Thank you.
haven't said anything to us about that.
Okay, thank you.
I have 2 questions. One would be, if the 8.1 million were approved, what would you do with it?
8.5?
8.5, just part
Okay.
with us, yes.
Okay. You're talking about the request you will be considering on Thursday?
Yes.
So I feel like it has to go towards where the bang makes the biggest, like if we're being charged interest on the 11.3, and that amount, that obligation is higher than what may happen with the substitute management system or the interest that we're paying on CNS, I think you have to run the numbers and see where the biggest impact is. Initially, it really was the state that we were looking at. But with the current landscape regarding any assistance from the legislatures and that being far off, if at all, then we really do need to go back and take a look at of the 3 big vendors. We would prioritize the substitute management system company that we owe, and then the state debt, and then maybe CNS. We would continue to work with the other vendor, who's a custodial services contract provider, and continue to ask for grace and flexibility from the commissioners on the amount we owe you.
And the second question was really more in terms of, just what you shared today on Article 46 means you started fiscal year 26 with a $5 million debt.
Potentially.
Well, it's already, it's already, those the over expenditures based of salaries have already occurred.
Well, we have fewer staff to start this school year.
Yeah, and so, during the year, some of that will, but you're starting in the hole. Could it get better by the end of the year? The answer is yes. It could get better. It should get better.
Yeah.
But it's still something that I don't believe in your balanced budget document for FY26 did not contemplate potentially additional money that would have to be that is going to have to be covered.
That is correct.
That was not anticipated. And I think I can, in this case, speak for this entire group. There's a real interest and concern about whether FY '26 and June 30th will be balanced. Forget the debt, forget all the debt, all those kind of issues. Look at the receipts and expenditures for FY '26 is going to be even. And that is a concern.
I share
That is
your
a concern.
concern. We are not done with adjustments that need to be made for 25, 26. I'll be providing, I spoke a little bit about that at the last board meeting that we had. We already have some places where budgets are coming in less from DPI, federal carryover is less, the detail on the Article 46 in the local supplement. Those are all factors that we are having to consider as we move forward with any potential changes to make sure that 25, 26 is balanced. More to come on that.
Other
I
questions?
have a question.
Yes.
Well, I have more than one, but I'm just going to ask one for the time being. All these things you've talked about and everything in regard to this is important. Is it known as to what the 4.5 million for the resource officers might have been spent for? The system made I'm going to just use system rather than individuals. So the system made a conscious decision to take that pot of money and use it for something else. Mm-hmm. And
I'm sure.
The parents, all I'm trying to do is let things kind of be focused in a direction, or as one of our former commissioners used to mention all of the time, transparency. That out of all of the things that's going on, to take, my guess is that the system figured that the county was going to do just what they did. The resource officers was there, and they were paid, and because the system decided to take that pot of money and spend it on whatever, is it known? But it's, and all the rest of the things I'll just think about, but that one is just real concerning one to me.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a direct line to it, but you could contemplate if we were 5.8 million to the deficit in what it would cost us to pay the local supplement, maybe you could say that the 5 million that was due for the SROs and the nurses went there. Or the substitute management contract, which cost us over 12 million. We owe them 6.1, so we did pay 6 million on it. Maybe it went there. But the other piece is we are overhired across the board with regards to the allocations that we get from the state, the federal, and what we can support on local. So we are 85% people and benefits. When you are 85% people and benefits, it's the people. And so I think that keeping all the people could also be a place where you say that those dollars went.
Okay, I just, the system decided that was, whatever they spent it on was more important than spending money on, that was allocated and directed for that for all personnel and students within the school. So that's, as far as the money that the board members might disagree with me on it, but if it's looked at in reality, they might come to the same conclusion as me. As far as that 4.5 or whatever it is was for the resource officers, school system don't have the money to pay that, and as I said when you were in here earlier, 2-3 weeks ago, that if we get repaid that, it'll have to be done with money from some other sources. And so, but we did, whether we do everything right, the county did do the right thing, and the county thought that our management and budget and finance people figured that the school was going to pay it back, and never did. I don't believe they ever requested it till the end. So I'll go a little bit further, because one don't have to be politically correct all the time. I think about and I try to control myself as I'm thinking to, and as I'm going about what I do during the day, of trying to keep myself politically correct whenever I get here. And so for the system to had taken money and spent it on whatever that was supposed to be spent on safety of everybody in the school system, teachers, all people and students, is just shameful that the system would do that.
We need to receive that
You don't
feedback.
have to
No, we need
acknowledge
to receive
anything.
that feedback. We have to receive that feedback. The mismanagement and prioritization and picking and choosing did happen. And here we are.
That's all I have, ma'am.
So Chairman, if I may, Dr. Moore, this is my last comment for today. I told your predecessor back in May that heavy is the head that wears the crown, and you have done this extremely well. I listened to you. And the words that I heard from you today, I'm hopeful with the suggestion that I'm about to make to my colleagues, they will hear as well. I told McManus back in May that if there was anything that the commissioners could do, I would try to do that. And hearing you today with relative to the deficit that you owe us, I would like for our county manager to find the ways to offer grace of forgiveness. And thank you for opening up that Pandora's box, Commissioner Gray, in terms of maybe forgiving what they owe us. This is going to take all of us to get better together, right? And you're asking. So whatever we can do, yes, we can withdraw monies from here and there, but in some ways, we're going to have to start forgiving some things. Now, I understand that we owe responsibility to the taxpayers, but those taxpayers are parents where they have students, and I'm hoping that they'll consider understanding the stream that we're trying to help with the school systems. So thank you.
All righty. Well, thank everyone for the questions. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, sir.
Update, it continues. Things look better than they did 2 weeks ago.
Thank you, sir.
So perhaps in 2 weeks, it'll look better than it did. We'll see.
Day at a time. Thank you.
All righty, thanks for being here. All righty. We have our Williams folks here. In fact, let me get back to my business here. So we have...
Mr. Chair, I think they're asking for a short break.
all right, we'll take a real quick 5 minutes then. Real quick 5 minutes. We actually did pretty well getting back together pretty quick, so thank you. We have Mike Atchie here, correct? I pronounced it correct, from Williams Companies. And to give you an update, we did begin with, we had the Sierra Club make a presentation. We had a 12-minute timer set aside for that. And we did that and then asked some follow-up questions. So we propose doing the same thing, set a 12-minute timer, and it does beep on the 5-minute increment, so it'll do a little beep at 10 and a little one at 5. And I will set that, and that way we'll be square. So we're glad you're here, and thank you.
Great, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity today. Apologize for not being here earlier. I intended to be here at the start at 2 o'clock. Had some travel delays in my way in. But wanted to just give a summary of our project, the Southeast Supply Enhancement. I know you've been hearing things from both supporters of the project and those with concerns with the project. So I thought it was a good opportunity to be able to come in and talk about the project, talk about the company, talk about the project, some things that we've done in the area. And I don't know if I'll need the full 12 minutes. I'll go through the slides and address questions afterwards. So I think did that work? Okay. So I'll go ahead and do a quick company overview of Williams Companies. Folks may know of Williams. We've been in the area for a long time, but typically it's good just to do a quick summary of what the company represents, our footprint, and just generally, our ability to help move energy in the country. So just a quick overview of Williams Companies. We're over 115-year-old designer, builder, and operator of key energy infrastructure across the U.S. We handle about 1/3 of the U.S. natural gas. So if you put that into context, 1/3 of all the gas that's moving in the country is handled by Williams Companies, a pretty significant amount. We own and operate the world's largest natural gas transportation system. It's the Transco pipeline. That's actually short for Transcontinental Gas Pipeline System. It's much easier and quicker to say Transco pipeline. So we typically, that's how we refer to it. And that runs from Corpus Christi, Texas, all the way up to the gates of New York City. So all the way through the Gulf and up the East Coast and stops at New York. The company's headquarters are in Oklahoma. We have field offices across the U.S. Here in North Carolina, we have about 75 employees, and we have just under 700 miles of total pipe in the state and about $13.8 million in economic impact from our operations on an annual basis in the state. Just a quick overview of our asset map. We operate in 24 states, including from the Pacific Northwest through the Mid-Continent area, through Texas, through the Gulf, again, up along the Mid-Atlantic area, and into the Northeast. And as you can see, I'll talk about it in a coming slide. You can see the Transco system. Again, that's the one I mentioned that runs up the East Coast. That one is highlighted on the larger map. And then on this map, zooming in on that Transco footprint, it's the nation's largest and fastest growing interstate pipeline system. And that's a good thing as far as helping meet the growing demand for energy in the Gulf, in the Mid-Atlantic, and in the Northeast. It was originally constructed in the 1950s. It has been built out over years through expansions. It is not one pipeline, it is multiple pipelines in an existing corridor. And that system alone delivers about 15% of the gas consumed in the U.S. So again, another significant piece of infrastructure. Consists of more than 10,000 miles of all the segments, over 50 compressor facilities. And the end users on that system are typically your utility companies, electric power generators, industrial users. Williams Company is not a utility, so we do not serve gas directly to homes or end users or serve it for electric generation as a utility, but we provide the gas that utility companies use to meet those daily needs. That's a little bit about the community engagement. That's where I work. I'm in our community outreach group, and we think we have generally a holistic approach to our outreach and engagement. Our employees are active in the areas where we live and work. We have, just in the past year, had what we call Volunteer Week, supported 77 nonprofits in 15 states just last year. We support civic organizations such as academic institutions, first responders, and other local organizations. A lot of nonprofits are supported across our footprint. Last year alone, it was over $13.7 million in community giving. Again, that's over 24 states, but it has served over 2,100 organizations just last year alone. So we're philanthropic. We give not only through the Williams Foundation, but also our employees give time volunteering in local organizations. We are committed to social responsibility and environmental stewardship. If you're really interested and you want to see about our sustainability aspects, you can go to csr.williams.com. Our 2024 Corporate Sustainability Report was just released about 2 weeks ago. And in that, we'll highlight all the things that we've done over the past year, 2024 year. And during that time, part of what my group does, we had over 600 unique engagements with stakeholders in 2024. So those are direct meetings like this, standing in front of organizations, meeting with them, explaining what Williams does. From our perspective, we have some of the industry's best engineering and construction practices, significant focus on safety and operational discipline. We have a pretty effective land department in the area who are working with landowners about our project I'll talk about in a couple minutes. And then we just look at being an inclusive and transparent, responsive in our approach to all stakeholders. So part of our kind of the way we do things is if there's a concern, if there's an issue, let's talk about it. Let's address those issues and concerns. Just generally some stats on the right side of the screen. I see about $2 million in community giving in North Carolina. That's over the past 15 years, about $13.8 million in annual economic impact in the state. And we've been in this area through our Transco footprint for about 75 years. So now let's shift gears and talk a little bit about this Southeast Supply Enhancement Project. I know you've been hearing about it. And we'll go through kind of a summary of that project. Just a quick overview. The proposed project is an expansion of that Transco system that I showed on an earlier slide, an increased capacity for growing need for energy in the Mid-Atlantic area and the Southeast. It supports the broader goal of meeting that residential, commercial, industrial demand for affordable and reliable energy in the area. It's designed in a way, and really took a lot of effort to design a project with this scope to do it in a way that minimizes environmental impacts. The best way we can expand our infrastructure, and as demand grows, from time to time we have to expand our infrastructure. Was that the 5-minute warning?
No, you have 5 minutes. Yeah, you have 5.
The best way we can expand our infrastructure is by using what we already have. It makes the most sense. We have existing corridor in the area. We can broaden that corridor and install additional segments of pipe, use the existing compressor facilities, which are used to boost the pressure, move that gas in that system. If we can use those existing systems, the existing facilities that we have, that's the best way to expand to meet that growing demand for energy, and that's what we designed this project to do. The project consists of existing pipeline looping in the right-of-way. That pipeline loop, and a little bit on pipeline construction, a loop is basically installing another segment of pipe next to existing corridor of pipe. So we're just broadening the right-of-way, installing another segment of pipe, and then we have modifications at existing compressor facilities in the footprint. The project overall is designed to increase natural gas transportation supply by 1.6 million decatherms per day. Just to put that into perspective, that's the equivalent of serving about 9.8 million homes per day. The project will include looping. I already mentioned the looping and modification of 8 facilities. It'll provide reliable gas service for Virginia, the Carolinas, Georgia, and Alabama to meet that growing need. There is definitely a local benefit for this project to bring gas supply for meeting the local need that utility companies are seeing. It is through the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission process. So we're an interstate pipeline system. In order to expand our system, we go through what's called the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC process. We filed an application for this project in the third quarter of 2024. In that process, filing that application ensures a thorough consultation with all the state agencies, the Army Corps of Engineers, and the FERC as the lead agency on the project. The North Carolina scope of work distinctly is about 28.4 miles of pipeline looping, and that's in the existing corridor in Rockingham County, north of here, Guilford, Forsyth, Davidson counties. And then we have additional compressor units, which basically boost the pressure of the gas to move it in the system, and that's in Cleveland County, Iredell County, and Davidson County. Just a quick overview of the map. You can see on the top upper right corner, that's one segment we call the Eden Loop, that's the Eden Loop, and then you see the orange segment more in the center of North Carolina. That's the Salem Loop. Those are the main pipeline segments of the station. Everything in that blue line is existing corridor. So everything in the blue line on the map is existing Transco system. Zooming into Forsyth County, it's about 8 miles in the county, and you can see where it crosses the southeast part of the county. A quick summary on the timeline. We initiated public outreach on this project almost 2 years ago and began communication with many stakeholders. We entered the pre-file process with FERC. Again, FERC is the lead agency. They're the agency that has purview over this project. We elected to do pre-file. That gives us a chance to basically work with the agency, work with all the other agencies that are involved, NCDEQ, Army Corps, other agencies, and work directly with the public. We held open houses for the project in counties where we had facilities. We've had a lot of community engagement. We filed our formal application with FERC in Q3 of 2024, and we're targeted, and this could move up a little bit. We're targeted construction to start Q3 of 26. We're optimistic that that possibly could happen a little bit sooner, with a target in-service date for the full project in Q4 of 2027. A lot of benefits brought by this project. I know folks will say maybe there are benefits, but there are definitely benefits. It's a $1.2 billion investment. That's a significant investment into the area. $926 million in total economic impact. About 3,000 jobs will be impacted by this. Of those, about 1,300 construction jobs during construction. So the idea that this project is a big investment brings a lot of opportunity for workforce, a lot of investments, a lot of indirect work. I've been in areas where there have been pipeline construction. The small businesses benefit directly from that activity. I've seen it. I've been there. So I know that these numbers are real. These numbers will happen. They're projections, but they will happen as far as, I got 5 minutes, okay. They will happen as far as activity for local businesses during the construction stage of the project.
Good.
All set?
Yeah, we hit our 12.
What's that?
Our 12 minutes is over.
Oh, okay. Can I just finish this last slide?
Well, just very brief, just
Okay,
highlight.
just quickly on the public participation process. The FERC, the lead agency, has a comment period where comments they don't have a comment period, but comments can be given at any time to the FERC docket under CP 25-10-000 through FERC.gov or by mailing it in to the DC address. And NCDEQ has 2 upcoming comment periods for state permits. Those will be held on September 2nd and September 4th. So a lot of public participation opportunities. FERC is the lead agency. That's where public participation should be happening.
Got it. From the question standpoint, I'll start with a couple, and then other folks may want to ask some. Talk a little bit about your safety record.
Sure.
And I'll preface that with, we've got pipes in the ground that are basically 75 years plus there. And the first question is then, how long will they last? How long do they last? Do you have to do something with them?
Well, so the concept that the pipes are just there, they've been put in the ground and that's it. That's not fully accurate in the way we handle kind of our leak detection. I'm showing that on screen now. The way we handle our system, there's many things that we do to ensure the integrity of that system. First of all, safety is first and foremost for us, but also our pipeline integrity, making sure that the system that we have in place is working the way it should. We do regular aerial inspections of the system, make sure that there's no issues from a visual aspect, including regular patrols we'll do along the right-of-way. We have it's what's called a pipeline information gauge. It's run through the pipeline, or they're called, essentially the layman term for it is a smart pig. They're put in the line, they run through the line, they basically assess the line for any kind of anomalies with the infrastructure inside the pipeline. So those are run on an interval basis. We also do inspections along our right-of-way. We have our gas control center. So Williams has a gas control center which watches our entire system 24 hours every day. If they notice any changes in pressure or flows or heat within the system, they have block valves that can shut down that system. We can send our operations team out and they can assess what's going on with that pipeline. There have been over regular maintenance. We do change out a pipe. So we'll come in if we notice something that's, a pipe that's been in the ground. We notice that, it's been there for a long time. We'll come in and change that out if we notice any anomaly or anything that requires maintenance to that level. We are doing cathodic protection, which is a way of we send a very light pulse to the pipeline to prevent corrosion. So folks don't know these aspects, that we're preventing corrosion on that system. We're monitoring it every day. We're running gauges through the pipeline itself in the pipe to make sure that it's meeting our integrity standards. And then if that isn't happening, we are eager to switch that out and through maintenance, regular capital maintenance, to change those pipes out. So the idea that it's just put in the ground 75 years ago, that's not the case. We are monitoring that on a
You're
very consistent
monitoring it.
basis.
I guess my question was,
Yes.
how long will they last? Will
Well,
a pipe last forever?
It will last decades and decades. Now, to
We're at
say that,
7
so
decades.
when we install it, we x-ray every single weld, make sure, we do hydrostatic testing. That's a process of running water through the system at a much higher pressure than it is allowed to operate at, to make sure that it can hold that pressure. And we do that at intervals to make sure that that pressure can be retained. And then again, there are maintenance that does take out and replace pipe on a periodic basis as needed. So we are monitoring, we are replacing as needed, we are assessing the integrity of the system. Again, as I mentioned, we've been in this area 75 years. And folks, honestly, we did some polling. Folks don't know us that well, which in a way is a good thing from an operator. We've just been doing our thing and safely moving gas in the area.
Well, in terms of, the presentation earlier talked some about, I guess, whatever the name of the regulatory agency on leaks and safety records. And apparently they dinged you guys a couple of times. So what is your kind of response to that kind of?
Sure. I mean, we are moving a third of all gas in the country. Just to put in perspective, there are not all Williams. There are about 300,000 miles of transportation systems in the country moving gas every day that people use to heat their homes, turn the stove on, see the little blue flame, produce electricity. There are going to be, from time to time, operational mishaps that happen. The key thing you do is you do all the things that we showed on the screen to make sure those things don't happen. Should something happen, you react, you learn from them, you assess the situation, you make sure to the best you can it doesn't happen again. So the concept that, well, there's these situations that have happened. Well, when you're doing anything every single day, moving massive volumes of energy that the country needs, there's going to be an occasional situation. But I think our safety record and the fact that we've been in this area for a long time, haven't had issues in this area, and have been able to, when there have been issues in other parts of our system, which people will highlight from 10, 15 years ago, say we did corrective actions the best we can to make sure those things don't happen again.
It was also mentioned in the Guilford County, sort of, their commissioners, I think, have passed some sort of resolution, which we have seen. I don't remember exact words, but apparently there was a part of it that should just, go forward. There's a real interest in the Williams folks working with the emergency management people in Guilford. And that was kind of proposed as a way to see that would happen. And apparently, to this point, they've not heard anything from you all about that kind of willingness to talk about it. Maybe it's waiting. I realize the environmental review's not over and it's not a done deal. But I guess that kind of request should be. I assume you mentioned earlier that you do work with emergency management and first responders. That review of, particularly during construction, a review of with our local folks about, things do happen. There's no such thing as no risk. There are risks.
Yep.
And so.
No, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we work closely with first responders in the area. At the beginning of this project, I think it was in March of 2024, and I know it was in the spring of last year. We held what we call first responder dinners in each of the counties. We came in, we did a similar presentation, and including in that presentation were all the protocols that we go through that basically kind of a training for first responders. Should there be an incident with a pipeline? We talked about all the properties of methane gas, all the properties of how we would look at response. And essentially, the summary of that overview is we handle our system. First responders are responsible for crowd control, making sure people aren't going into the near facilities or media containment, making sure people aren't trying to get in and turn valves or anything like that. So we handle our system. If it's a Williams Transco situation, we're the ones who would turn the valves. Our people are trained to handle emergency situations. We did that training. Each of the counties, I mean, they were okay attendance. We invited all the volunteer, local first responders, county EMAs to come. And we also, following that, we would work when we go in prior to construction, have a similar dialogue with all the emergency responders in the area, let them know this is what's happening with construction. Remember this project, we talked about it. Here's what we're going into construction stage. And then I know our operations, they'll have emergency response plans on site for any of our above-ground facilities, but also they work to have an ongoing dialogue. They're the ones, the boots on the ground. They're operating the system. They'd be the ones who talk to emergency responders on an ongoing basis. But we definitely held the first responder dinner, training events, would do a similar thing prior to construction commencing with county and local first responders. And then our operations team would handle ongoing engagement.
This is my last question.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for stopping the flood of emails that
Yeah.
we were receiving. And I'm a little actually concerned about how that, because I think I told you that I heard from several people. I answer folks, and it's pretty, so we're going to be discussing whatever. And eventually I did hear from some of the very people I was responding to that they didn't know who Transco was, and they didn't know why. They said, why do you keep sending me emails? That was me sending them emails because their name was being repetitive and showed up. I probably responded to about 100. So that practice strikes me. Tell me how that can happen.
Sure. So we know there's support for, well, we did polling in January of this year. We know there's support for clean energy, for natural gas, about 61% support for natural gas. We know that there's a demand deficiency, or there's a demand and an infrastructure deficiency with 43% increase in demand with only a 25% increase in infrastructure to meet that demand. We know that there's groups out there that support clean energy, support natural gas. We've engaged them to basically do some advocacy for us through this process. We know others are doing things on the opposite side of that. So groups that we asked to communicate to local electeds and agencies, they were the ones sending. Apparently, it was more robust than it was more robust than we thought it would be. So apologize for that. We've asked those groups to stop doing that. So apologize for.
Well, it did stop after we
Yeah.
talked on we had a session on when it was Thursday. It stopped.
Yep. Good.
Good. Other questions?
Got a couple. Mr. Atchie,
Yes.
thank you for coming today. I know you had a long plane ride and problems at the airport. Seems to be par for the course. I'm interested in following up on the question about relative risks and sort of assessment of how concerned we ought to be. The opponents here of the proposed project have given us articles listing more than a dozen incidents over the past 10 years, suggesting that maintenance and monitoring is in effect problematic. Over $3 million of fines, et cetera. And do you have any specific response to that assessment of? In contrast, basically, you have, of course, Williams, as one would expect, asserting a strong safety record, and opponents asserting a particularly problematic one. Any specific response to the incidents being cited, if you're familiar with them?
Well, I have seen some of them over the years. I know in any kind of industry where you're doing something on a daily basis, it means a high demand. You have to operate safe. You have to do it for both public safety, employee safety, and environmental safety. You have to operate in a way that ensures you're doing the things you need to do to keep your system safe for anyone around it, anyone who works there, anyone who lives by it. I think at times things have happened. There are, and you see that list. I mean, it goes back, 10 or 15 years, pulling out, little segments of an operational mishap somewhere here or there that says, well, look, this is how they operate. They don't show the 365 days every year that we're moving that gas, the coldest days of winter, to make sure there isn't a situation where people aren't getting the supply they need. And then that could be more catastrophic. And by any means, people aren't getting heat for their homes when the temperatures gets really cold. And also, if electricity demand, that would be also an issue if electricity demand went up. So the idea of positioning an incident in 2009 or an incident 2007 or whatever those dates are, and saying, well, look, they had an issue here. Yes, we do. Every day we make sure we do everything we possibly can. And I showed on the screen the significant amount of activity just to make sure there's no leaks and making sure we're preventing anything like that from happening. But the things that we do on a daily basis, the safety is a high priority within our company, the training our employees get, those things are all driven at making sure those things on that list that you've been receiving are not happening on a daily basis, a monthly, annual basis, that we're doing everything we can to make sure that those things aren't happening. Our operations people are, I think, the best in the industry. The fact that we've been in Forsyth County for decades. I don't think you've heard of us as all these safety issues in Forsyth County. I've been with the company 15 years. I don't remember any issues in this part of North Carolina. So I think it's just the fact that we are doing things on a daily basis. You have acknowledged there have been issues in the past. Once in a while, there's something that happens that we make sure we address it, learn from it, and make sure that, to the best we can, that doesn't happen again.
Of course, what we're being asked to look at is the relative risk to the proposed pipeline extending through our area.
Yep.
And we have situations such as a pipeline running within 1,000 feet of major medical facilities in one of our largest communities in Forsyth County. And the question is, that we have to consider is this a risk that we should be concerned about? And certainly that is a positioning of a major high-pressure supplemental pipeline within, essentially the moderate to high-risk blast perimeter. I would like to follow up on the question of the emails, because I too received 3 separate responses from folks when I sent them answers to what appeared to be presented as a personally signed message from, I think by the time they stopped on Friday, it was over 1,000, perhaps closer to 1,500. Because I was estimating at a rate of probably 40 to 90 a day averaging. These were all identical messages, but they were coming over individual signatures. I'm sure you're familiar with the firm called Civiclick.com, and all of these were originating at the same email of constituent@civiclick.com. You're involved in the company's community and project outreach office of Williams. Can you tell me how Civiclick got the list of names from which we were receiving what were allegedly individual communications under an identical message?
Sure. Let me address the first part first. You mentioned the high consequence areas and the pipeline being installed there. Just a reminder, there are already multiple lines, the Transco system in those same areas.
And in fact, that's part of the stated reason for concern about this, that there's been insufficient study of the cumulative impact if the large high pressure pipeline suffers an accident and it's in close proximity to older, obviously, less current in terms of their condition pipelines. What is that going to do in terms of the size of the potentially resulting disaster there? So that's actually a part of the concern as opposed to a recommendation for the project.
Yeah, well, exactly. There are 3 lines, these 3 running through the area. We'd be adding a segment next to existing corridor. Those lines, when we, during construction, segmented off, construction will be on the opposite side of those lines, so there's no concern of line strikes or anything during the construction stage. And then the thought of, what happens if one of the lines were to have a leak or a rupture, the way they're at least 25 feet apart. There would
Only
be no-
25 feet?
25 feet apart.
And you're talking about something with a blast radius of over 1,000?
So the concept of blast radius, I hear that all the time. I've been in the company 15 years, I've heard this concept of blast radius, and people come to meetings, what's the blast radius? I'm in the blast zone. The reality is that the way people think about that is, oh my gosh, there's going to be a rupture, it's going to blow up everybody. The way you would think about that is a rupture would basically dissipate gas to the atmosphere. The properties of methane, it is lighter than air. It dissipates quickly. Plus, these lines are all buried. But if there were a line strike, and that is one of the issues we have with people who dig and they don't call 811 and they hit a line, I'm sure other utility companies. But if there was a line strike or the incredibly rare chance of a rupture, gas in that line on that pressure would dissipate almost instantly into the atmosphere. I mean, it would go up and go out. The idea then, okay, then there's an ignition source somehow. That's right there. That's going to cause that natural gas blowing at 800, 900 psi to ignite somehow. These are the things that are put out that say, like, basically there's a concern over a blast or I've heard of, well, I won't say the other.
We have in front of us a list of a number of situations in which precisely that happened.
Right. Well, but not with catastrophic, that the way it's portrayed, a catastrophic blast and igniting of high pressure gas in areas. I mean,
We're talking about cumulative list of projects in which 6 people were killed and over 100 were injured.
Yeah, I mean, that's unfortunate. That
Very,
these things
very
happen in
substantial
industries,
property damage in
many industries,
nearby
but this concept of a blast and for miles of blast area, that's just not the way the properties of gas under pressure would work. They would dissipate quickly into the atmosphere.
Yeah, well, that's why I
do
was going to
everything
the
you do.
specific example
Right.
of the Kernsville situation in which you have this pipeline running very close to existing major medical facilities. But please continue with
The other
a
question was
look at the
about
other question about
the advocacy
Civic Link.
efforts. So
Yes.
we are doing things to show that there's support for the project. We know that everyone who was sending emails is a supporter of energy, supporter of natural gas, a supporter of affordable, reliable energy for their homes and businesses. So those are advocates of energy. They do live in the area. We activated that. We know there's other email campaigns and other efforts to show opposition and put things out that are opposing the project, but there are support. I didn't really talk about our public polling.
Well,
but
not
there's
the polling
definitely
public,
support for the
not
project.
the public polling, sir, but how did you check, or how did CivicLink check with the individuals to see if they were comfortable authorizing using their name and their email address as being a sender of this specific message? Was that done?
Yes, well, that is part of that process. So they sign up. They opt in to do that process.
They opt into the process of what? A blanket permission,
Advocating for energy infrastructure.
but not this particular message?
Well, they do it on a holistic basis of energy infrastructure, meeting reliable energy needs. So there's groups through organizations such as American Petroleum Institute called Energy Citizens. People sign up. I'm an energy citizen. I sign up. That gives the authorization to use my name. And I'm sure there's many others, that maybe people in this room, I don't know. But
Right.
there's others who sign up for that and then become an active supporter of energy infrastructure.
I hear that. And I'm involved in various advocacy campaigns myself. I know how organizations routinely will send out suggested messages, and they will invite people to sign on to a specific communication. I have never before heard of a situation where people sign up on a list giving permission for their name and their address to be used indefinitely without prior review of a particular correspondence. And that appears to be the case in this situation, where we've had possibly 1,000 or 1,500 people resident or allegedly resident in Forsyth County whose names have been used to send us an endorsement, a specific language endorsement of the Williams Company and a particular project that in fact they apparently have never seen.
Well, everyone who engaged in that process had to click to send it.
No, because the messages were coming in at all times of the day and night. I doubt that there are a lot of people clicking to send us emails at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, they get an email, say, click here to send your support. Yes.
Well, there were a number of people that communicated with us saying they did not do so.
I can't speak for them. I know that is the process.
I don't want to belabor the point further. Thank you, sir.
Other questions?
Yeah.
Already lines and others on Fort Bear. Was this in the corridor that's been precise? How quick can shutdown occur?
So as I mentioned, we had our gas control monitoring the system. We actually have a gas control center in Oklahoma and a backup in Texas. So they're monitoring our system 24 hours a day. So if one of the gas control centers were to go down, there's a backup. They're monitoring the system. If there was any change in pressure, any anomalies, they have the ability to shut in pipelines from the control center. And then our operations people would get out and assess the situation, see what was happening. They would shut in the lines, and then that would cause decrease in available supply. But then they would get out and assess the situation. So if there were anything, they have the ability to remotely shut in our system. And also, I went through all the things we do to make sure that from an pipeline integrity, performing regular maintenance, aerial patrols, foot patrols, inline gauges to go in the pipe and assess the quality of the pipe. So all those things, the many things that we do on a daily basis, make sure that system, that there isn't an issue with that. But if there were a situation, our gas control can shut that in.
Shutdown valves that may be in place. They automatically shut off if an incident occurs. That here or anywhere else, particularly here.
Well, there are automatic shut-off valves, yes. I can't say distinctly if in Forsyth County. I don't want to say yes to that. I'm not 100% certain. In the county itself, but there are automatic shut-off valves that would shut in that section of pipe and allow us to assess what's going on. The other challenge, though, there's that demand for supply, so you want to make sure you're keeping up with that demand too, because on the supply side, on the demand side, there's a daily need for gas for electric generation, heating homes, cooling homes. So you have to look at all the ramifications of a full shut-in of that Transco system would then prevent gas from providing meeting many needs.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much
Sure,
for being
that's
here.
great. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks
making
again.
the flight.
Apologize for not being here earlier. Tried to get here by 2, but it just didn't work out.
We understand that part.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Turn the meeting over to our county manager now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, Commissioners, staff, and guests. Agenda item number 1 is a resolution designating an official to make recommendations to the North Carolina Alcohol Beverage Control Commission on ABC permit applications. Van Loveland Stanley from the Sheriff's Office will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Chairman Martin and Commissioners. How are y'all today? Just real quick, this is a resolution where currently on the ABC permit application with the state, Chief Gray is the one that has to sign off on those applications. What we'd like to do is take the name off of that and just use a rank, so either the chief deputy or any of the majors can research those when they come in and sign off on them, just so that there's no delay when those applications come in for anything out in the unincorporated areas of the county. Any questions?
Questions? Thank you.
Yep, thanks, sir.
Agenda item number 2 is approval of minutes for the meeting of July 24th. Have those been emailed out? Those have been emailed out. Thank you. Agenda item number 3 actually is a school system item, and we will write up something for Thursday's meeting. Agenda item number 4 is a resolution designating the Piedmont Triad Regional Council as the lead area agency on aging for Forsyth County for state fiscal years 26 and 27, and a resolution authorizing submission of the FY26 Home and Community Care Block Grant County funding plan for older adults and authorizing execution of necessary documents to submit the plan for state approval. Kyle Wolf, our budget director, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. As County Manager said, this item is necessary to designate Piedmont Triad Regional Council as the lead area agency on aging for the county. They've been the lead area agency on aging for the county for several years. One of the primary responsibilities is planning and coordinating the development of the county funding plan for local service agencies for the elderly. This item, so after you do that, then the other item would be to approve the FY26 Home and Community Care Block Grant Funding Plan for older adults. And the funding plan is attached, showing the allocations between DSS and Shepherd Center, Senior Services, and some other agencies. And I'm happy to try and answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Kyle? Thank you very much.
Agenda item number 5 is a resolution ratifying and authorizing execution of an interlocal agreement between Forsyth County and Guilford County for the Improving Community Outcomes for Maternal and Child Health Program and an associated amendment to the 2026 budget ordinance. Sharita Sutton, our Assistant Public Health Director, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. We're requesting the approval of the interlocal agreement between Guilford County and Forsyth County that allows Forsyth County Department of Public Health to continue the collaboration with Guilford County's Improving Community Outcomes for Maternal and Child Health, aka ICO for MCH. This program delivers evidence-based services to improve birth outcomes, reduce infant mortality, and enhance the health of children from birth to age of 5. Under this agreement, payments to Forsyth County will not exceed $201,808. Any questions?
Any questions?
Yes, just one. This is the third time I've asked it of this third agency. Does your group have any information about the comparative incidence of infant mortality with pregnant women with and without prenatal care?
That will be some information we can get with our epidemiologist to pull that information to compare that. If we have that in our state data system, that we can pull the information if it's available to share.
Because we learned a week ago that the incidence in this county is higher than the state average.
Yes. So we do, our infant mortality rates have been higher. Infant mortality rates for Guilford County and Forsyth are higher. We are in the top 5 with that, most definitely. We have seen a decrease. However, we are still among some of the highest rates, Guilford and Forsyth.
It'd be nice if somebody tracked the incidence of prenatal care for women.
Yeah, so we don't have that kind of, the information, if it's related to prenatal care, to your point, if not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May I ask a follow-up?
Yes.
I understand that there's a pretty strong data-backed association between availability of prenatal care generally and successful outcomes. If you don't have local specific numbers on that, perhaps you could provide some of the overall research that's been provided.
Yes. Yes, we'll get the information to you if available.
And I am informed that that's undergoing, that's being done right now in the county. They just don't have it yet, statistically. All we know is how bad it is.
Thank you.
I assume it's too soon to ask that by Thursday, so maybe we could work on that.
We'll work on it.
Whatever. If it's available by Thursday, wonderful. If it's not, we can get it at an upcoming report.
Okay.
We could do it at another briefing.
Okay. Thank you.
Agenda item number 6 is a resolution ratifying and authorizing execution of an interlocal agreement between Forsyth County and Davidson County on behalf of their respective health departments for Forsyth County to provide lab testing services to Davidson County. Nicole Priddy, our Assistant Public Health Director, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Again, this Public Health is seeking to enter into contract with Davidson County, again this fiscal year, to conduct laboratory testing for Davidson County. The amount to be paid to Forsyth County will not exceed $16,000. And just for your information, our Public Health Laboratory processes approximately 30 to 40 tests from Davidson County per month.
Any questions? Thank you.
Okay. We are going to pull agenda item number 7 because on Thursday we will bring to you, if the Board of Education approves tomorrow, to reduce their appropriation, and then we'll bring back a different interlocal agreement that has no dollar exchanges. So we'll do that at an upcoming meeting. But agenda item number 8 is also Ms. Pretty's. It's a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement with the Bradley Group LLC to provide temporary employment services for grant-funded programs at the Forsyth County Department of Public Health.
Again, Department of Public Health is seeking to enter into contract with the Bradley Group to provide temporary staff to assist with the delivery of services for our WIC program and our Minority Diabetes Prevention Program. Total contracted funds will not exceed $67,352. All funds will be paid via reimbursement from North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. And just for your information, the Minority Diabetes Prevention Program provides bilingual health coaches to Forsyth and Davidson counties.
Questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 9 is a resolution authorizing the purchase of influenza vaccines from Sanofi Pasteur, Inc., using the state of North Carolina contract pricing. Camilla Pleasance, our Assistant Public Health Director, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This resolution will allow the Forsyth County Department of Public Health to purchase our seasonal influenza vaccines from Sanofi for use in its vaccination clinics. This purchase order is for the amount not to exceed $1,335,983.22, and is being purchased through the North Carolina State Term Contract for influenza vaccine. Can I answer any questions?
Any questions? Yes.
Just one. Do you anticipate any delay in the availability this year based on the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services
As of
decision?
now, we're not. We should get them sometime in September.
Okay.
So they're on target.
I was concerned about that, the dismissal of the group that normally
Yeah.
analyzes what would be the most effective mix. Well, glad to hear it's coming on time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 10 is a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement with Proprio LS LLC for telephonic, written, and virtual interpretation services. Naya Payne, our HHS Evaluation and Planning Manager, will brief this item.
Hello. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I am requesting approval to go into contract with Proprio LLC. Proprio provides telephonic, virtual, and ASL interpreting services for the Human Service Campus and also for Human Resources this year. We included them on our contract. They have been, this is the 3rd year we've moved into this contract with them, or this is my request to have the 3rd year to move into the contract with them. They've provided overall excellent customer service They provided overall excellent customer service for our employees and also for the community. Happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Questions? I think it's good that that program actually operates there's no minimum charge. It's what you use, and you got it. And I appreciate the bidding process too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 11 is a resolution authorizing execution of an amendment to the revenue agreement with Wake Forest University Health Sciences for the provision of food nutrition program outreach services. Chantel Williams from our DSS department will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, Madam Manager. I'm here today to request approval to enter into an amended agreement for a second full-time employee with Atrium and DSS with our food and nutrition services. This FTE will assist families with FNS benefits to reduce barriers to food insecurities located at the Downtown Health Plaza. This position is reimbursed 50% of salary and benefits. The original agreement was not to exceed $90,337, so this will increase it by $69,000 and not to exceed $159,944.
Questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 12 is a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement with the state of North Carolina on behalf of its Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services for forest services. Leslie Rose, our Cooperative Extension Director, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So this one is a contract with the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, their Forest Service, for Forsyth County's share of personal services, operating expenses, office space, and capital expenses for the county ranger, assistant county ranger, forestry management clerk, and temporary positions on an as-needed basis. So the county pays 40% of the cost, so the total cost for the fiscal year is $294,370, and the county's share of that is $117,748. So they've been working with us many years. This is an increase from last year's contract, primarily due to the needed purchase of another vehicle, and this is for this fiscal year. And I'm happy to try to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? Thank you.
Agenda item number 13 is a resolution authorizing execution of a second amendment to the agreement with Walter Robbs Architects, a Michael Graves company, for the Smith Reynolds Airport Terminal renovation project. James Anderson, our Design and Construction Manager, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. The item before you authorizes a second amendment to the contract with Walter Robbs Architects in an amount of $15,000. Due to delays caused by unforeseen conditions, owner requested changes in FAA coordination issues. The construction time for the terminal renovations extended approximately 8 months. During this time, Walter Robbs incurred additional costs for construction administration and design services related to these changes. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Questions for James? Thank you.
Agenda item number 14 is James as well. It's a resolution authorizing execution of an amendment to the agreement with Ursoy Brake Appleyard Architects for the 4001 North Liberty Street Improvement Project.
This item before you authorizes an amendment to the contract with Ursoy Brake Appleyard Architects in the amount of $163,538 for additional services on the 4001 North Liberty Street Improvements Project. Of this amount, $132,265.50 is related to services for unforeseen structural conditions that did not match the as-built plans that were used for the design of the renovations. And these additional services include both design and construction administration. And then the remaining $31,272.50 is for additional services related to multiple submittal reviews. The contract with Ursoy allows for 2 reviews per submittal, and we've had issues with the subcontractor and the general contractor providing incomplete or inaccurate submittals requiring multiple reviews by Ursoy and their subconsultants, and so they've incurred an additional $31,272.50 for that additional work. And we will be seeking to recoup those costs from the general contractor.
Can you describe that? This is the project out at the north end there. We're redoing that building, adding a floor, if I remember right, the pictures. Am I in the wrong project?
So this is the building that North State Aviation operates out of, doing the maintenance, repair, overhaul of aircraft. And so the bulk of this project was to redo the waterproofing system that's on that elevated parking deck that's on the east side of the building. And so they did the first section of demolition, discovered that the slab elevations weren't what was anticipated. The reinforcing steel in the deck wasn't what was anticipated. And then the structural steel conditions underneath that were exposed weren't what we expected either. And so there's been quite a bit of additional design time associated with coming up with the fixes for that.
What is that expected to do to the budget for this project? I mean, doesn't sound like cheap work to me to fix. You're just talking about the design work. The actual work's going to be big bucks.
It could be. That's to be determined yet. We're working through that with Bar Construction currently.
So these unforeseen structural conditions relate to the integrity of the steel shell that's out there?
It's not so much the integrity of the steel as it is the conditions did not match the elevations. Because essentially we've got to put back a sandwich that starts on the bottom with a structural bonded overlay, then a waterproofing layer, and then a topping slab. And the issue that we're having is the elevation of the existing steel did not match what was supposed to be there. And then the thickness of the concrete that was existing did not match what was supposed to be there. And so right now, if we did absolutely nothing, we would have a potential that water would enter the building because the drains and the high points on the deck would be above the finished floor elevation. So the potential fixes would be looking at, doing more hydro demolition to take out more concrete, or looking at doing additional drains, perhaps, things to shrink down that area that's in that.
I agree with the chair. It doesn't sound simple.
It's not. This one's keeping me up at night right now until we get to the bottom of what's going to be required.
Well, you should sleep well from the airport project. Right? It turned out really well.
Thank you.
Any other questions for James? Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 15 is a resolution authorizing execution of a contract to provide business personal property auditing and audit appeal defense services. Amanda Markle, our tax assessor collector, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, everyone. The item presented in front of you today is request for approval to enter a contract with Evans and Associates Consulting Firm to complete our audit and compliance for our business personal property. We did submit an RFP back in the spring. We received 4 responses, several different options, and the one selected stood out among all of them. So we are requesting approval of that, and I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Amanda? Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 16 is a resolution awarding and authorizing execution of a contract with AA Security Services for traffic control services for the Festival of Lights show at Tanglewood Park. Constantine Stamati from Parks and Recreation will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. The item represents a resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement with AA Security Services. It relates to contracting traffic control services for the Festival of Lights, which is the annual event held in Tanglewood Park between mid-November through January 1st annually. The event attracts thousands of visitors annually, so ensuring smooth traffic control is essential for its success and maintaining safety. The service has been bid out through city-county purchasing accordingly, and after reviewing the bids, we recommend awarding the contract to AA Security Services. They were responsive, and offered the lower price with the total contract cost of $178,063.23 for the entire period, and the contract price is for 3 years. Compared to FY25 prices, the FY26 contract reflects a reduction of $23,064, and the funds required for the upcoming season are included in the approved FY26 budget. And with this, I'll be happy to try to address any questions.
Any questions for Constantine? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Agenda item number 17 is a resolution authorizing the purchase of bone needles from Teleflex by Forsyth County Emergency Services. James Snyder, our Emergency Services Assistant Chief, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. What we're requesting today is authorization for the purchase of EZ-IO interosseous vascular access devices from Teleflex. This is a sole source provider. This device helps us get interosseous access. It is a time-sensitive emergency life-saving procedure that we do almost daily. And again, this is a sole source provider for that. Price-wise, it has not upped since last year. It's the same thing, and we are requesting that we approve or get approved that total $68,835 for the fiscal year ending in June 30th. In your packet, there is the sole source provider letter, as well as a recommendation from our current medical director, Dr. Petit, recommending this device. I can answer any questions or try to.
Any questions?
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Oh, I was going to say, just a comment. I appreciate the simultaneous translation.
You're welcome. And I do just want to say Mr. Snyder was recently promoted to Assistant Chief over Operations of Emergency Services. So congratulations.
Oh, very good. Congratulations.
Congratulations on that. I wanted to ask you, though, given the relative expense and the difficulty risk of using intraosseous vascular access versus, the routine use of venous access. How often is it used? I thought I heard you say daily?
Yes, sir. Especially in the occurrence of a cardiac arrest, it is one of the frontline accesses that is used. It's very quick, it's very easy to do, it's pretty low risk. Oftentimes, we have patients that you cannot obtain normal peripheral access on, and that's where this device would come in.
So when they code, you can't get a good vein?
Sometimes, and it's, with the cardiac arrest, we're working in a matter of seconds and minutes trying to get those initial treatments on board, and that's the fastest, most secure access point.
And you would use that access as opposed to a cut down?
We would, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Agenda item number 18 is a resolution authorizing the grant and execution of a utility easement to Duke Energy Carolinas to construct and access utility infrastructure across a portion of Forsyth County-owned real property located at 725 Highland Avenue. Chelsea Swaim, our Deputy General Services Director, will brief this item.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Board. This item is a request from Duke Energy's Carolina LLC for an easement across a portion of county-owned property for the installation of maintenance of utility infrastructure to include a transformer, which would serve the newly installed electric vehicle charging stations at the Health and Human Services campus. This is 725 Highland Avenue. This is on the back side of the campus, and this easement does include language which would require prior written approval from the county should the easement or the infrastructure need to be relocated. So happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Kelsey? Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda items 19 through 21 are our reports. 19 is the June contribution-based benefit cap report, 20 is the June HR report, and 21 is the Partners Health Management update. And that's all of our agenda items.
All righty. We're done. We'll see you Thursday.